To ask you about Jalen Williams and his ability to take charges. How much of that is a teachable thing, and how much of it, how did that evolve to where he's so effective that way?
Well, I think number one, he's got great pride in being an unbelievable defender on the ball, as well as being a great defender off the ball. And it's innately. I mean, we've had two guys from Fort Smith that are both great charge takers. Isaiah Joe did the same thing a few years ago, and now Jalen Williams. I mean, both those guys have incredible basketball IQ from a defensive standpoint. And, I think that in order to be a great charge taker, you've got to read your man and the ball. Because certainly, when you're playing a team like Kentucky, you don't want to give up dump off passes, to number 34, Oscar. You just don't want to do that. So, and I think Jalen's done a really good job. I thought he did a great job against Auburn of not giving up too many dump off passes, and helping up the line too much. So that's important that he plays that cat and mouse game as well on any dribble penetration.
And what do you think of that matchup, Coach? Jalen and Oscar as key to the game, and how you'd like to see Jalen handle that?
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk to our team tomorrow when we get back on the practice floor about, that this is not a one positional matchup. Just like when we played Auburn, it wasn't just Trey Wade's responsibility to guard, Jabari Smith. It's our whole team. And so, last night, against Florida, Castleton's a really good player, and we elected to play him a little bit more one-on-one and not give up three balls to Florida, because we gave too much help interior in the first half. So we have not developed our game plan yet. We will, tonight as we watch the game live, and then as I get in, tonight back to the office and in the morning to try to develop exactly what we want to do. So, I think it'd probably be too early other than to just say, hey, it's going to be a 5-man committee on the glass and a 5-man committee guarding not just Kentucky star players, but every night that we go out, it's got to be.
Thank you.
Curtis?
Coach, you mentioned preparing for Oscar Tshiebwe. You just saw Castleton. You saw Kessler recently. You have Jalen Williams. I guess I'm just curious, what's your take on the front court talent in the SEC this year and the way Jalen's, held his own against some of the best in the country?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the biggest thing, Curtis, is just, our league, when you look at it, the draft, I mean, those are, star players are getting drafted, and this year is going to be no different when the year's up. When you look at the talent across the league at all positions, it's not just one position. So, Kentucky's got a lot of what I would consider stars. I mean, you talk about the talent of Ty Washington and his ability to score on floaters, his ability to make threes, his ability to get all the way to the rim. And, Grady, I mean, he's a heck of a basketball player, can shoot the ball with incredible range. You can't give him any airspace. That's why they're one of the best teams in the country. And, we certainly, have talked to our team about the fact that we think that Kentucky and Auburn and Tennessee are all teams that can make a Final Four, and certainly feel like Kentucky's a team that can win a national championship based on their talent and based on Coach Calipari's experience coaching in big games and his X and O's. So I guess we got to bring our A game without a doubt across the board with everybody, because this Kentucky team's really good.
And how does Severe Wheeler and Ty Washington, how do those guys change the dynamic for Kentucky when they're healthy? And then how impressed were you that they were able to beat Alabama without either one of them?
Well, I think it shows you the depth that they have. Grady and played some more point than what he normally would. Mintz obviously, started for Kentucky last year and has great deal of experience in this league playing in the backcourt. You can only play 5 guys. So whatever 5 are available for Coach Cal, I mean, he's got a talented group, and obviously to beat Bama the way they did without, Wheeler and Ty says, about his coaching staff, the job they do, and then obviously, the talent as well. But, Wheeler's one of the fastest players end to end, and is a guy that's crafty when he gets to the middle and finishes, and he's a great dump off pass guy as well. So, the thing I like about Kentucky's roster is, each guy's kind of got his own little thing. I mean, Brooks is a great glue player, and, Wheeler's a different point guard than Ty Washington. And so they give you all these different types of looks instead of a steady diet of the same type of player. I think their player profiles are much, much different than each other, which makes them, difficult to game plan against.
Alyssa.
Hey, Coach, I'm curious, most of the time when you're playing, your opponent that you play next is playing as well. So the uniqueness of being able to sit down and watch Kentucky live for your team instead of watching the film that you guys break down for them, how unique is that?
But, with Kentucky, I probably wish that we were both playing at the same time, to be honest with you. Then I wouldn't have to watch them live. When you watch a game live, Alyssa, it lasts longer. And I don't know if I want to sit and watch Coach Cal's team play longer than what I need to with the commercials and stuff. But, for me, I love watching games live. I mean, every single night, that's all I do until my wife tells me it's time to turn on power. But they're good. I think they're so talented and they're so deep that, whether you play on a Tuesday or Wednesday, I don't think there's been any significant study that says that there's an advantage, disadvantage either way.
Yeah, I was just curious, but hey, how about Note not getting any fouls yesterday? I think he's only done it one other time against UALR, but as aggressive as he is, you got to love that he was able to be disciplined.
Yeah, when you have to guard in practice holding the towel above your head, sometimes that'll help you learn not to use your hands. I can't use my left arm, but if you got one hand here and one on the other side, and you got to shuffle your feet and you're not allowed to hand check, it certainly helps. You can't gamble either when you're holding the towel.
Bob.
Hey, Eric, how you doing? Hey, what about this winning stretch you're on? I guess I'll call it a stretch, 12 out of 13. There's been several games where you guys were down late in the game or even in overtime, but you keep finding, we ask you this after practically every game. You were down fill in the blank points with fill in the blank time, and you came back. I mean, but you've done that multiple times. You've done it at home, which obviously is easier, but you've done it on the road too, at tough places like LSU and Florida. What's the key to that, do you think? I'd
love to say it's some magic formula. I mean, last night I told the guys that we got to, get back to defending like the 1985 Chicago Bears, because they were so good defensively. And I think the whole team looked at me like, what am I talking about? Not knowing obviously so sometimes you say some stuff and they're like, what is this guy talking about? I have no clue what he's, but I do think that, losing taught us a lot. It really did. And we made a U-turn on January 9th and decided that, that in order to win, you had to go earn the game. And we talk about that a lot, Bob, during timeouts, is nothing's going to be given to you. Last night, when we got down 5 or 6 late in the game, a lot of teams, that thing could have spiraled to 10 or 11 with Florida's student section. But in the huddles, man, we got there's belief, there's communication, everybody's talking. Post game, probably the coolest thing is everybody's happy for each other. And that just doesn't happen often. Sometimes you walk in a locker room and somebody might not have played the role they want. But last night when I looked around and I knew that there was going to be 7 guys happy because there was 7 that played significant. But when you see players happy for each other and their role might not be what they want, it certainly talks about the chemistry of the team.
And then when you Sheboy, I hope I'm not butchering his name. I'll just call him Oscar. That's easier to say. Averaging 16 and 15. I mean, that's average. What do you think of his game, and how does he get all those rebounds? I mean, he's big, but it's not like he's 7'5" or something.
Incredible energy. When he runs in transition offense, it's like he's in a track meet. He's probably the best rim runner that I've seen in college basketball. He's an incredible second jumper. You're going to have to hold your ground too. Like, you're going to have a wide base when you box out. If you box out with the skinny base, he's going to dislodge you. That we promise. So if you're not a physical block out player and you skinny block out, you're going to get pushed underneath the rim, and he's going to grab the ball and dunk it. And so you've got to hold your ground. And so there's some technique to blocking out as well with the wide base. And then you really can't simulate his second and third jump, which he's incredibly explosive as an offensive rebounder. And then he's got an unbelievable nose and feel for where the ball's bouncing to as well.
I can't remember which game it was. It was one of the early season games, maybe Charlotte or Elon or something. But I remember seeing your radio quotes. You talked about, wanting more fans of the games because they all the games are sold out, but they weren't filling the place. And then you start off rough in the conference, and you're thinking, well, gosh, are they going to get the big crowds when the big games come up? And then you guys are playing great, so you're packing a place. Kind of, what do you remember about maybe a little bit of disappointment, frustration, whatever earlier, and then what it's morphed into now? And I'm sure it'll be another huge crowd Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, we probably didn't have as many as we wanted because Coach Pittman was doing such a good job, and everybody was excited for football. So I guess we'll blame it on the success of Coach Pittman and all the excitement around, the football team. Maybe that's why we were short. And then when you don't play well, we talk all the time about you got to earn entertainment dollars. There's a lot of stuff to do. There's 15 games on TV tonight. And if you get ESPN Plus, there's another 30 on. So, you got to get people to get in their car, spend gas money, spend money on the ticket, spend money on whatever you're going to buy to eat or drink. There's a lot of entertainment dollars. So you got to earn that respect. And I think we've done that, the last 12 or 13 games. And maybe during a certain stretch, some people elected to watch things on TV or go to a movie instead of coming to Bud.
Well, I think it's across the country. Even the successful programs, they don't pack them in November and even December. But
well, if you're on your West Coast, they don't pack them in anytime.
Yeah.
Even in March. I mean, you can watch. I don't want to get in trouble, but you can watch a Pac-12 game in California, and there might be only 4,000 people in the stands.
Yeah, you're going to piss off Bill Walton. I might have a couple more, but I'll turn it back to Mike.
Scotty.
Yeah, Eric, you've mentioned, I think, twice since you guys went over Auburn that Devo's maybe played his best game. Just based on what you've seen out of him, like what's brought on this recent stretch and I guess uptick in kind of productivity and confidence too?
Yeah, he's done a great job in transition. He's shooting the ball with much more confidence. I think his game is really simulating what he did last year and his success. He's catching that thing. He's attacking the rim. He's stretching the defense out with making threes. When somebody else dribble drives, he's an elite loose ball getter, and people hear that and they're like, whatever. But like, if you look at Kentucky, a lot of the game is like an extra possession game, whether it's offensive rebounds, whether it's loose balls. And Devo's a guy that gets us extra possessions, which is so valuable. And then obviously we know about his defense. He's defending at a high level. And then offensively, I think he's playing with as much confidence as he has the last 2 years.
Last night I saw you politely get onto JD for, I think, defensive effort maybe in the second half. How did you see him respond to that? And is he maybe a guy that, can take the message and not the tone?
Yeah, JD and I are on the same wavelength. I did get a phone call from my mom about JD, and she wanted to make sure he was cool with everything. But we expect JD to be one of the best defenders in college basketball. And I thought, last night there were stretches where, we needed him to be a little bit more aggressive, maybe commit a foul, by him stabbing at the ball. And, but the one thing, like there's one player I never worry about during the course of a game with interaction and communication and being on the same wavelength. And that's JD. I mean, since he's been here, even during his sit out year in practice or whatever, I mean, he's the one guy that he knows exactly what I'm thinking, whether I say something, don't say something. He can read my body language probably as good as any player I've ever coached.
Would you say that's the most enjoyable thing about coaching him, or is there something else that jumps out to you?
No, I mean, there's so many things about JD that, and I told the TV crew that had our game, it's really interesting. I went back and looked at the finances of all the recruiting visits we had. And guess who the cheapest recruiting visit, or the visit that cost the least amount financially? JD Notae. You know why? Because all he wanted to do was talk basketball, get a hamburger and a pizza. He didn't want to go get steak dinner. He didn't order 3 steaks to take back to his, hotel room. And that's the dude he is, man. Everybody on staff loves JD Notae. Everybody on the team likes JD Notae because he's a real dude. And he's tough. He's competitive. He's appreciative. And like I said, I mean, I've never been on a visit where you don't have to entertain a guy. All he wants to do is either watch game tape, talk, and, he's just a no maintenance type of guy to be around.
Hutch.
Yeah, coach, these guys ask pretty much everything. But one thing I've noticed about your teams these 3 years is that despite having all these different personnel, free throw shooting has been pretty consistent, and y'all have been really clutch, in late game situations. What's the key to that?
Well, I know one guy that hated our free throw shooting practice, and that's Justin Smith last year. JD has made the comment that, hey, coach, we have more pressure in practice shooting free throws than we do in a game. JD told one of our coaches last year that he's much more nervous at the end of practice than he is when the game's on the line shooting free throws. You can ask Jalen because I think he's coming on after, but we have a perfect free throw drill that can sometimes take 10 minutes and sometimes take over 30 minutes based on how they're shooting, because it is truly a perfect free throw drill where in under 2 minutes we've got to make 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And you've got to make each of those segments consecutively with one player shooting them at a time, and there's no talking in the gym. So some guys on this year's team don't like that drill, and a lot of guys last year didn't like that drill. But I think it does. We try to simulate, game free throws as best we can, Andrew.
Kevin.
That's 12 wins in the last 13, and we know the calling card has been mostly on the defensive end. You guys are a top 15 rated defense. You actually, went on the road and out defense, the number 1 defense at the time in LSU. Probably out defense Tennessee, who's been top 5 there. And then again last night against a good defensive team in a more offensive game down the stretch, second half on the 3 line. But I want to talk about your offense, because I really think when you looked at last night's game, when it seemed like Florida down that stretch, when y'all flipped that 6-point deficit, was kind of living at the free throw line when you were holding them, short of field goal. I think they got 2 field goals in the last 8 minutes. You guys didn't get the free throw line benefit to the last 40 seconds when they started to foul to stop the clock. Talk about your offense, specifically 2-man game, whether it's pick and pop, pick and roll. I'm thinking Jalen Williams, Devo Davis, JD Notae, even DC Tony. And then some of the plays that both Devo broke off maybe in transition, secondary transition, and then JD, especially late with that 3. that put it out to a 4-point lead?
Yeah, I mean, I think one, we felt comfortable with Devo playing in some pick and rolls last night at different angles on the floor. We started the game running a lot of pick and rolls on the wing on the right side of the floor. We moved it to the left side of the floor as the game progressed. JD's been on the ball so much this year, Kevin, and we slid him over to off the ball the last 7 minutes of the game, a little bit more than maybe we have in other situations. And obviously Jay Will as a pick and pop guy, he hit a huge three. And then JD made a huge three. I think our spacing right now, we made a conscious effort when we weren't knocking down threes to continue to, not rely on the three, but not abandon the three. And I think it's helped us because now teams are really concerned with Stanley Amude's three, which they should be because he's had 2 games where he's made 6 of late in each of those 2 games. And Jay Will is a 3-ball maker when the game's on the line. And obviously JD, those 3 guys make threes with the game on the line, regardless of what their percentage is. And now you add in the fact that Devo has now done that of late. And so it changes how people have to guard us late in games, because it doesn't matter what Devo's done during the course of a 35-minute game when you're playing a 40-minute game. And same thing with Jay Will. We've seen it time and time again. And if you allow those guys to get their feet set and take a three in crunch time, they'll make them. And we knew that, the game was a little bit more physical and we weren't drawing FTAs. And so we had to try to figure out a different way to score.
And I want to talk about, obviously, Kentucky coming up. You've got some road games in between, but if you think of back-to-back Bud Walton games, I think it's Auburn, Tennessee, and then Kentucky. And it seems like you guys have raised your national profile, whether it's results in those games, winning them, some of the promotions around it. I know you've got a lot of recruits coming in this weekend, but talk about how maybe Arkansas could take another step in this game Saturday, because it's the SEC's blue blood. So I'm just wondering your thoughts on that. Not asking you for a final prediction, but just kind of your thoughts on the escalation of Arkansas's national profile of late.
Yeah, I mean, I think just as we've talked to, people nationally, or maybe it's friends, maybe it's people, front office personnel or coaches in the NBA, I think as our staff, or it can just be picking up the phone after one of these recent games. And, on some games you might get 30 or 40 texts, and then others you might get upwards of 200, depending. And certainly, Kevin, the games that you've mentioned have been the games, where you're going to get a lot of text messages. But I can tell you, like, from a ticket request standpoint, I told my wife, don't ask about tickets. I told my son, I told the staff, like, the ticket requests right now is, through the roof as it was against Auburn. But I do think we'll see an environment, and I told the team last night, you'll probably see an environment starting on Friday around campus with the anticipation of the game Saturday. It's just not going to be on Saturday where the environment's like that. It probably will start on Friday.
Well, we got to follow up.
Yeah, Eric, Stanley, I mean, he scored, well last night, but, not 30 or whatever. But I know, he had a tough shooting game last Saturday against Tennessee, but you played him like practically the whole game because I know his defense was good. I think he's had 3 steals each of the last 2 games. What do you think about Stanley's, the stuff he's doing besides shooting and scoring?
Last night, he was internally, he was our defensive player of the game. He was absolutely phenomenal when we went back and graded his defense. He's getting much lower defensively than he was earlier in the year. He's doing a much better job of blocking out defensively than he was earlier in the year. He's made the most strides, Bob, for sure, of all of our guys from a defensive standpoint.
And then, I remember when you guys lost to Kentucky 2 years ago, Cal got tossed. That's about as down as I can remember seeing you after a game. And you talked about missed opportunity because the crowd was so big and all that. And then the other day when you guys beat Auburn, you referenced how maybe this team was better able to handle big situations. I think I'm paraphrasing that accurately. If I'm not, just tell me I'm not. But do you feel good about, what do you remember about that game 2 years ago, and how far you guys have come as a program since then, and just how ready this team is for these big stage games?
Well, I think we got too emotionally invested early in the game, and I don't think our legs ran out of gas. I think emotionally we ran out of gas. I think, when Coach Cal, got thrown out of the game, I think that some of our players from a maturity standpoint might have thought that, the game would change in our complexion, which it didn't. It flipped the other way. And that's why Coach Cal's, a phenomenal coach and really can read situations. And, but what we have talked about is we have talked about that game this year and some of our big games with big crowds, and talked about the fact that, we got to play for 40 minutes. We know there's going to be scoring runs. The game's never over. And it's going to be the case on Saturday as well.
And then is that like an NBA TV show about power forwards, or I'm not familiar with that.
You got internet, right, Bob?
Yes.
Just Google Power, and it's a good show. I highly recommend it.
Okay, well, maybe they'll send you a T-shirt too.
I just want a Calgary Flame T-shirt.
Okay, well, we'll try to work. Maybe if you took a picture of yourself and tweeted about it, they would send you one.
I'm going to get Riley on that.
Okay, I bet they do it.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Eric.